very good evening to all our viewers. This is News First, where the people come first. And welcome to tonight's edition of the Prime Time News, coming to you live from our Newsfirst studios in Colombo. I'm Arundhati Mudannaik, and let's start off with a look at the stories making headlines this evening.
Aragale activist Senadi Guruge arrested. Venerable Kassapatero remanded. IUSF convener detained at Navagamua temple following arrest, alleges lawyers. Lawyers tell court that SLPP Sanat Nishanta made comments affecting the judiciary. IUSF and Aragale activist meets diplomats seeking support for rights protection. Will rights issues affect IMF talks? President says he urged China to change its stance on debt. Concerns mount over a fuel shortage.
And now the stories in detail. Arrests and detentions surrounding the Aragale people's protest were reported today as well.
The joint convener of the Aragale National Movement, Senadi Guruge, was arrested by the Colombo Central Crimes Investigations Division. Guruge was a frontline activist at the Occupy Golface protest site. He was arrested down Vauxhall Street while returning from the Fort Magistrates Court today. The police officers escorted Senadi Guruge in a three-wheeler he was travelling in before an attorney arrived at the location. Senadi Guruge is charged with abducting and assaulting two Sri Lankan army personnel. Sri Lanka police said he would be produced in courts tomorrow.
Opposition leader Sajith Premadasa was denied an opportunity to visit Aragale activist Senadi Guruge, who was taken to the Slave Island police station.
We are here to visit the detained activist, and he is to be produced in an identification parade. There is no need for that because he was seen on television at least 500 times a day. They are trying to call for an identification parade and deny bail for the activist.
Venerable Balangoda Kassapatero was arrested by the Criminal Investigations Department on Wednesday. He was arrested on charges of trespassing into Prime Minister's office and damaging property and is remanded until the 26th of this month. Venerable Balangoda Kassapatero was placed under arrest when he arrived at the CID premises on Wednesday morning to provide a statement.
The arrest warrant issued against Dr. Pathum Kerner was recalled on Wednesday after he appeared in court. Pathum Kerner is charged with leading a protest at the Polduwa Junction in Battaramulla on the 13th of July 2022. A warrant was issued for his arrest on Tuesday as he failed to appear in court. The case will be called up again on the 29th of November 2022. We are hoping to work more closely with the international community to overcome this economic crisis. To do that, we need to protect human rights and the peace of this country. We should bring political stability to the country. We should not condone the persecution of the activists by using the PTA.
Several activists who held a press conference at the President's office was granted bail.
Reverend Father Jivanda Piris, General Secretary of the Ceylon Teachers Union Joseph Stalin, activist Duminda Nagamua and 7 others who appeared in court over an incident where they forcefully entered the President's office and convened a media briefing were granted bail by the 4th Magistrate Court. Magistrate Tinana Gamage ordered for the suspects to be released on personal bail of 500,000 rupees each. The suspects appeared in court today upon being informed to do so by the Colombo North Crimes Investigation Division. The Sri Lanka police said that the 10 people were named as suspects in the incident where they forcefully entered the President's office and convened a media briefing on the 13th of July 2022. The case will be taken up again on the 31st of August.
Council for the Inter-University Students Federation convener revealed that Wasantha Mudalage was moved elsewhere following his arrest.
Attorney-at-law Nuwan Bopage, a counsel appearing for the activist, revealed that the convener of the Inter-University Students Federation, Wasantha Mudalage, was detained at the Navagamuwa Devalaya several hours following his arrest.
On the 21st of August, we were not able to obtain any information on Wasantha and the others for several reasons. We now know that he was detained at the Navagamuwa Devalaya. When inquired, the response was that officers were awaiting instructions. It is clear what kind of group is spearheading these events. I am told that there are efforts being made to ban the activism carried out by the Inter-University Students Federation.
Attorney-at-law Nuwan Bopage made the revelation after visiting the convener of the Inter-University Students Federation, Wasantha Mudalage, at the Tangol Central Detention Centre on Wednesday. Wasantha Mudalage, Hashantha Gunathilaka and Venerable Galwabasiri Dhammathero, who are now detained under the Prevention of Terrorism Act for 90 days, were moved to the Tangol Central Detention Centre on Tuesday.
Only Wasantha Mudalage was here. The other 2 activists were taken to Colombo for investigations. Therefore, I could not meet with them. Wasantha Mudalage said the authorities were questioning him based on a script. They are of the stance that the 9th of July uprising at Golface was incited by the IUSF protest on the 8th of April. The protest leading to Mahinda Rajapaksa's official residence, the protest near the parliamentary complex that took place for 2 days, and the protest opposite the World Trade Center. After questioning, they have concluded that if not for the Inter-University Students Federation, a social struggle would not have happened. He has refused to answer certain questions as he is being held under the Prevention of Terrorism Act illegally, and because scripted questions are being posed, he expects to present facts to a court legally. He has informed the authorities that he is not bound to answer any questions posed according to a script. He is not physically injured, but he has undergone serious mental stress.
Student activists visited diplomats in Colombo on Wednesday.
The Inter-University Student Council on Wednesday met with the EU delegation in Sri Lanka and elaborated on the use of the Prevention of Terrorism Act to suppress dissent. The student activists thereafter visited the British High Commission in Colombo as well. The question that we have to ask is how Ranil Wickremesinghe says that those who raise their voices for people's issues are now seen as terrorists. Ranil Wickremesinghe is a person who has no public mandate in this country. After making deals with rogue politicians, he was appointed to the presidency in a devious manner. This is what the Rajapaksas want. The Prevention of Terrorism Act is a bill used in civil war, but rejected by the international community. What is the basis to use the PTA to arrest student activists?
SSP Nizam Jamaldeen, the head of the President's Security Division, was at the Human Rights Commission of Sri Lanka for an inquiry on Wednesday.
SSP Nizam Jamaldeen, the current director of the President's Security Division and the former director of the Prime Minister's Security Division, was summoned to the Human Rights Commission of Sri Lanka earlier today with regard to the complaint filed by MTV Channel Private Limited over the assault on Newsfirst journalists who were reporting on the protests that took place opposite Ranil Wickremesinghe's private residence on the 9th of July 2022. The inquiry took place in the presence of the chairman of the Human Rights Commission of Sri Lanka, retired Supreme Court Judge Rohini Marasinghe, and Human Rights Commissioner Anusuya Shanmuganathan. The SSP's party had requested the Human Rights Commission of Sri Lanka to allow for submissions to be made after the fundamental rights application filed over the incident is taken up at the Supreme Court. However, that request was turned down. The HRCSL emphasized if SSP Nizam Jamaldeen does not provide a statement, it will be considered as he has nothing to submit to the Commission with regard to the assault on journalists. Accordingly, SSP Nizam Jamaldeen was notified to appear at the Commission again on the 9th of September. President's counsel Ronald Pereira, appearing on behalf of SSP Nizam Jamaldeen, revealed that his client had made him aware over the phone on Tuesday evening that a case had been filed with the Supreme Court over the violation of fundamental rights. The counsel apprised the Commission that SSP Jamaldeen is unwilling to provide a statement until case records are assessed and advice is sought from his client. President's counsel Ronald Pereira also noted he believes his client will be prejudiced if a statement is provided today, adding he had advised his client to refrain from providing such a statement. Counsel representing MTV Channel Private Limited, Damita Karunaratna, said the petition filed at the Supreme Court and the probe at the HRCSL are two separate examinations, pointing out that no court or institution had issued an injunction to halt the Commission's investigation. Attorney at Law Damita Karunaratna added the rights of the MTV Channel Private Limited and its journalists will be seriously affected if the inquiry is postponed. He requested that a final decision be announced as soon as possible. After considering the facts, the chairman of the Commission stated it was her understanding that President's counsel Ronald Pereira had presented facts without fully comprehending facts provided in Act number 21 of the Human Rights Commission. She noted the Supreme Court's case and the investigation conducted by the HRCSL were conducted in two separate contexts. Quoting certain clauses, Chairman Rohini Marasinghe said the HRCSL's probe should not be halted in light of the Supreme Court's examination, elaborating that the HRCSL probe should continue. The chairman emphasized that SSP Jamaldeen refraining from providing testimony when it is of paramount importance to the probe should not be done so according to the Act.
According to activists, 4 different factions are being subjected to suppression.
The collective of mass organization notes that 4 different factions that voice dissent are being targeted for suppression. Ranil Wickremesinghe was able to become the president as a result of the Aragalaya protests. Today he is suppressing the very movement that became the ladder for him to reach the presidency. We have identified 4 different factions that are subject to suppression by Ranil Wickremesinghe. One is the student activists, the other is the civil organizations, then come the mass organizations, and then we have the journalists. Media personnel were suppressed. He is trying to build his program by suppressing these groups step by step. The suppression started with those who held independent views. Then they started with the civil groups. They saw their attempts to suppress the student movements. Thereafter, they tried to hunt down the media personnel. This is pre-planned suppression. They are trying to portray that these groups are offenders and that is why they are arrested. But we can see these groups are being suppressed. He is trying to build an environment to proceed with his liberal economic plans.
We are ready for legal action. We require all OIC to give us the list of names and for what cases they are required for. They do not need to waste fuel to drag the activists away like criminals and terrorists. We stand with all the Aragalaya activists. We are ready to come to court. So stop the mental trauma you inflict on them through intimidation.
2 SLPP MPs were ordered to surrender their mobile devices to detectives today.
SLPP MPs Sanath Nishanta, Milan Jayatilaka and Dan Priyasad surrendered their mobile devices to the CID on Wednesday. The trio is named as suspects in the case filed over the attack on the Gota Gogama protest site on the 9th of June 2022. Fort Magistrate Thilina Gamage ordered the suspects to be detained in court until they surrender the mobile devices to the CID. The court made the relevant order as the trio failed to comply with the previous court order to surrender their mobile devices to the CID. Fort Magistrate Thilina Gamage noted that if the 3 suspects fail to comply with the order, their bail will be terminated and they would be returned to remand custody. President's Counsel Upul Jayasuriya, appearing for the aggrieved party, told the Fort Magistrates Court on Wednesday that SLPP parliamentarian Sanath Nishanta at a media briefing had made comments in a manner that affects the judiciary. The President's Council alleged that the comments affect the lawyers and officers from the Attorney General's Department who attend to judicial matters. Accordingly, Fort Magistrate Tilna Gamage ordered the CID to obtain the original video of the press conference where the MP made the comments from the respective media institution and conduct an investigation. The council appearing for the aggrieved party in the matter questioned the reason as to why the authorities have failed to arrest senior DIG Deshabandhu Tennakun, who is also a suspect in the case, and produce him in court. The CID officers informed the court that the Attorney General had advised them that he would issue the necessary instructions on senior DIG Deshabandhu Tennakun at the conclusion of the investigations. The matter will be called up again on the 5th of October.
The Centre for Aragalaya National Movement was opened in Vauxhall Street in Colombo on Wednesday.
The Centre for Aragalaya National Movement was opened today under the theme The Second Wave of Aragalaya. This is an opportunity for Ranil Wickremesinghe to take action against this person who insulted the courts. Sanat Nishantha, who is out on bail, is commenting on the judiciary. He is speaking about releasing the Aragalaya criminals. We will be watching to see if the same law that was imposed on Ranjan Ramanayaka be imposed on Sanat Nishantha. The opposition leader expressed his opinions in this regard. Are the laws on contempt of court only valid for Ranjan Ramanayaka? Does it not apply for the MPs supporting the current government? According to these ministers, the representatives of the people's struggle must be produced in court. They say that they will be released the next day on bail. Are they not insulting the court system of the country? Are they not insulting the judges? Then there is a situation in this country where one law applies to Ranjan Ramanayaka and another law to Pohottuwa MPs.
පොහොට්ටු මන්ත්‍රීවරුන්ට තව නීතියකුත් ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙන්න තත්ත්වයක් නේද තිබෙන්නේ.
Also in local news, trade unions and mass organizations continued their demand to end suppression.
Political party leaders, trade union leaders and representatives from mass organizations echoed the call to end suppression.
We have continuously fought against the Prevention of Terrorism Act, that it must be repealed, it must be taken off our statute books. Let's start a massive people's movement for the repeal of the PTA. In 2017, Ranil Wickremesinghe travelled to Brussels and gave a guarantee. He promised that the PTA would be repealed. It was on that promise that GSP plus concession that had been taken away from Sri Lanka was given back. Now it is 5 years and the PTA is still there and now has been revived in the sense they have started using it, and the same Ranil Wickremesinghe has the distinction of signing 3 detention orders. So this is something that we cannot accept. The repressive measures are now being used and PTA is at the forefront of that. He is unable to continue with the emergency, so he is allowing it to lapse. Declaration of emergency was challenged in the month of April. The Supreme Court granted leave to proceed. That matter is still pending. Subsequently also various organizations have challenged the imposition of emergency apart from the fact of challenging the regulations themselves. Court is intervening. Court has granted a second time granted leave to proceed against that, and therefore that is being allowed to lapse. But PTA that has not been repealed to date is being used. So our focus, I plead, must be on the PTA. Let's join together from north to south, east to west as one common humanity. Let's stand together and fight this. We will win. There is no doubt about that.
Approximately 1,358 people have been imposed for the 22nd of July to the 23rd of August. The people were struggling for their survival. The suppression is taking place against them. This needs to end now.
The Centre for Policy Alternatives has raised concerns regarding the steps taken by President Ranil Wickremesinghe in his capacity as the Minister of Defence to issue 3 detention orders under Section 9 of the Prevention of Terrorism Temporary Provisions Act permitting the detention of Vasantha Mutalige, Hashanta Jeewantagula Tilaka and Venerable Galeva Suridamatara for a period of 90 days.
Releasing a statement, the CPA says the move to detain the three suspects for their alleged involvement in the recent protest is yet another example of the abuse of the PTA by the executive, which there have been persistent calls for the repeal for several decades. The CPA says the detention for the apparent involvement in the Aragalaya appears to be yet another effort by the United National Party, Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna government to target protesters and create a chilling effect in order to silence dissent. In its statement, the CPA says Section 9 of the PTA gives the Minister of Defence the power to make detention orders for a period up to 3 months, which can be further extended for 3 months at a time thereafter for up to 12 months. The CPA urges such a statement is contrary to how the PTA is now being used, including the most recent moves to target protesters and prevent dissent. CPA points out that Sri Lanka has ample laws that can be used to investigate any individual who is suspected of committing an offence. It also notes, as such, the use of PTA to target protesters and equate their actions to terrorist activities is extremely dangerous, alarming and wholly disproportionate. The CPA says this is exacerbated in the context where Sri Lanka is facing an unprecedented economic crisis and is imperative that the government takes all steps to protect and promote the rights of all its citizens.
Time for a short commercial break. Stay with News First. We will be right back.
පුරා ගලන මේ සතුට සුරක්ෂිත කරන්නේ එස්ලෝන් ඉන්සයිට්. එස්ලෝන් ජීවයයි ජලයේ ජීවිතේ.
Welcome back. Here with News First. Sri Lanka is urging China to dramatically change its stance on debt relief. President Ranil Wickremesinghe told Nikkei Asia, conceding that reaching a deal will be no simple task.
The appeal to China, the bankrupt Indian Ocean nation's largest bilateral lender, has emerged as a formidable challenge to Wickremesinghe, who is leading the country's financial team as it attempts to rebuild an economy starved of foreign reserves and mired in misery. Wickremesinghe has told Nikkei that Sri Lanka has informed the Chinese government of the need to restructure the debt and the need for all the creditors to sing from the same hymn sheet. But the six-time Prime Minister, who won a parliamentary vote for the presidency and began his term on the 21st of July, sees a complex part to spurring a change of heart in Beijing, hinging partly on Sri Lanka's other lenders. He said that China has adopted a different approach, so it is a question of what is the agreement that the other creditor parties can reach with China.
An IMF staff delegation in Sri Lanka called on President Ranil Wickremesinghe on Wednesday. The President's media division said that Sri Lanka's current financial crisis was discussed at the meeting. It was decided to conduct another round of discussions on the 26th of August for a technical level discussion to take place with the central bank officers in the future.
The Economic Policy Centre of the Samagi Jana Balawegaya warned that human rights allegations will have an impact on the discussions taking place with the International Monetary Fund.
The central bank governor 2 days ago said Sri Lanka has not officially approached any of the creditors. He says creditors will be approached after a staff level agreement is reached. This is a confusing situation. If we are to reach a staff level agreement, the government must produce a program on debt management. From the 12th of April, Sri Lanka officially suspended debt payments, excluding those to the Asian Development Bank and the IMF. Stating that no discussion has commenced on debt restructuring is an alarming situation. This situation cannot be approached like a dictator. If this is to be done using the state of emergency laws, there will be a social backlash. It would lead to destruction. The talks between the IMF and the central bank are crucial. We hope for a positive outcome, because if these talks fail, the people will continue to suffer.
බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා ඒවා සාර්ථක වෙයි කියලා. මොකද අසාර්ථක වුණොත් එහෙම අපි කාටත් මේ රටේ සියලු ජනතාවට දුෂ්කර යථාර්ථයට දිගින් දිගටම මුහුණ දෙන්න සිද්ධ වෙයි කියලා අපි හිතනවා.
බොහෝ දුරට මේකේ ජාත්‍යන්තර මූල්‍ය
India, Russia and the US are key stakeholders in the IMF. They can influence the IMF. If there is a human rights violation, they can actually call for a delay in reforms.
සංස්කරණ වල වැඩසටහන ප්‍රමාද කරන්න කියලා ඉල්ලීමක් කරන්න පුළුවන්. ඒක බලපෑමක් වෙන්න පුළුවන් කියලා අපි හිතනවා.
Chairman of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, Professor J.L. Peiris, convened a media briefing in Colombo.
විදේශ කටයුතු අමාත්‍යාංශය, අධිකරණ අමාත්‍යාංශය, ආරක්ෂක අමාත්‍යාංශය.
The Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Ministry of Justice, AG's department, the police and even the Chief of Police requested to have all these departments come together and propose the necessary changes to the PTA. I was the chairman of the committee and as the Minister of Foreign Affairs, I submitted a full report to the government. With the agreement of the then President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, we pledged to the international community that Sri Lanka will not exercise the PTA until the necessary reforms have been made. The then President was in full agreement with this. That was a decision that was taken with a sense of accountability by the government at the time. But what has happened now? The government is using the PTA to suppress protests, the Aragalaya, and even the issuance of detention orders to detain such individuals for 90 days. This is completely contradicting the promise we gave.
දින 90කට මාස 3කට එය බන්ධනාගාරගත කිරීම සඳහා. ඉතින් අර දුන් ප්‍රතිඥාවට සම්පූර්ණයෙන් පටහැනි.
රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ මැතිතුමා අනුප්‍රාප්තික ජනාධිපතිවරයා වශයෙන් පත් වෙලා තියෙනවා.
Ranil Wickremesinghe is the new president. Can the current president, who was elected by the people, say that the people's mandate is no longer relevant to him? Or is he only representing the parliamentarians that elected him? Is that the mandate he upholds? I believe D.B. Wijetunga has understood this problem very well. He constrained the powers of parliament. He constrained activities such as the PTA. Solving this issue is not that difficult. This is the document that started it all. This is the document that gave Gotabaya Rajapaksa 6.9 million votes. This is the same document that gave them the win in the general election. Therefore, we can acclaim that Gotabaya Rajapaksa's successor is carrying out the exact same mandate, taking forward the good work of the Podujana Peramuna.
ඡන්දයෙන් ආපු ජනාධිපතිවරයා වශයෙන් ඔහු වැඩ කරනකොට මේ වැඩසටහන එක්ක ගමන් කර යුතුයි කියලා.
President Wickremesinghe is set to present the Appropriations Amendment Bill, also known as the Interim Budget, to Parliament for its second hearing next Tuesday.
The Committee on Parliamentary Affairs decided that the debate on the second reading of the Appropriation Amendment Bill will be held from the 31st of August to the 2nd of September.
As a party, we have requested the President to take whatever action he can on the matter. This is a matter pertaining to the President. He is working on it.
අයිතිකාරයක්. ඉතින් එතුමා ඒ සම්බන්ධයෙන් කටයුතු කරනවා.
අමාත්‍යවරු දේවරුන් දීම තාම පේන තෙක් මානක නැද්ද නැත්නම් ඔබතුමාලාගේ කණ්ඩායම කවද දැන් මේ වෙනකොට තීරණය කළා තියෙන්නේ?
එයත් ජනාධිපතිතුමා විසින් තීරණය කළ යුතු දෙයක්.
Several shooting incidents were reported on Wednesday and Crime Watch has the details.
One person was shot dead by motorcycle gunmen at the Kurusa junction in Gampaha earlier today. Sri Lanka police said that the two men on a motorcycle opened fire at the 34-year-old victim when he exited his lorry parked outside his own store. CCTV footage showed the gunmen waiting for the victim to leave his vehicle before opening fire and then fleeing the scene. The body of the deceased was placed at the Gampaha hospital. One man was injured in a drive-by shooting earlier today in Aungalla. Reports suggest that two motorcycle gunmen had pursued the victim, who was also on a motorcycle, and opened fire using a 12-bore shotgun. A personal dispute had led to the shooting. Motorcycle gunmen gunned down a man in Uragasmanghandia in Alpitia earlier today. Police said investigations are underway to locate and arrest the assassins.
The US ambassador to Sri Lanka says that it will take creativity, leadership, determination and compromise to resolve this economic crisis.
The US ambassador to Sri Lanka, Julie J. Chung, said that the country is blessed with a serendipitous location at the heart of the most economical dynamic region in the world and maintains a highly educated workforce. She said that Sri Lanka must fully leverage all its resources, especially an important but underutilized one, its women, adding that Sri Lanka must invest in its people and create more inclusive and sustainable economy. The ambassador said that the United States is committed to supporting the Sri Lankan people to achieve a secure and prosperous future for all, and we are happy and honoured to get to support the leaders of tomorrow.
A private member's bill has been submitted to Parliament seeking to amend Sri Lanka's penal code with the aim of protecting the country's LGBTQI community.
Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna MP and Attorney at Law Premanath C. Dolawatha submitted a private member's bill seeking to amend Sri Lanka's penal code with the aim of protecting the country's LGBTQI community. Sri Lanka has not recognized LGBTQI rights legally, and the island nation's 4 decades plus old constitution only mentions men and women. A copy of the bill was presented to the President, Speaker, Attorney General and the relevant office in Parliament. Parliamentarian Premanath C. Dolawatha stated that this draft was handed over to the Parliament as a tribute to Mangala Samaravira, commemorating 1 year of his demise, who raised his voice to protect the rights of a person to maintain his sexual orientation according to his wishes.
Lengthy queues opposite filling stations across the country have re-emerged. Our reporters reveal that a shortage of diesel has been observed in many areas.
Newsfirst cameras captured the queues formed opposite both the IOC and Sipetco filling stations in Slave Island today. While many filling stations in Kandy were not in possession of stocks of diesel, our correspondents noted petrol was being issued based on the QR system.
Diesel ගණ්ඩාවේ අද කොහෙවත් diesel නැහැ. නුවර කටුගස්සට නුගවල කොහෙවත්ම diesel නැහැ. ඉතින් අපි අමාරුවෙන් තමයි මේ අපේ ව්‍යාපාර කටයුතු කරන් යන්නේ. හැමතැනම බැලුවා. කොහෙවත් නැහැ diesel.
Newsfirst inquired from the Private Fuel Tanker Owners Association of a possible slowdown in the distribution of fuel. However, they pointed out such a shortage or limitation does not exist.
First with the people.
The third phase of the Divi Savia program, supported by LOLC Holdings in a bid to help the worst affected due to the economic crisis in the country, continued in the Batcalo district today on its 19th day.
Under the Divi Savia program, essential goods are being distributed to low-income families facing serious financial difficulties across Sri Lanka. Essential food packs are being distributed to poverty-stricken families in 4 separate areas of the Batcalo district today.
Moving on to news overseas, Thailand's Constitutional Court on Wednesday suspended Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha from official duties after it decided to hear a petition to review his legally mandated 8-year term limit.
The court announced its decision in a statement sent to media. It was not clear when it would deliver a final ruling on the petition brought by the main opposition party, arguing that Prayut's time spent as head of a military junta could count towards his constitutionally stipulated 8-year term. A government official said earlier in the week that Deputy Prime Minister Prawit Wongsuwan is expected to take over as interim leader. Former Army Chief Prayut took power in 2018 when he led a coup to overthrow an elected government. He became a civilian Prime Minister in 2019 after an election held under a military drafted constitution. The main opposition party has petitioned the Constitutional Court to review his legally mandated 8-year term limit, arguing that he should leave office this month because his term as junta chief should count towards his term.
And with that, we wrap up tonight's edition of Primetime News. Thank you very much for joining us. This is News First for the people. Good night.